Greetings, everybody. This is Serpentine451, and welcome back to another episode of Weeb Warriors. And joining me, as always, and will be joining me this week, is Jordan. How you doing tonight, Jordan?
I'm in there, Tony.
All right. It has been a while since you've been on the show, Jordan. And since you were telling me this off recording, there is a show that, well, a few shows that you've been watching that we're not currently reviewing. So, do you want to give a small overview of at least one of those shows?
Okay, so I'll give the overview of the comedy series Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun. It is a series based around the title of character Iruma, who is sold by his parents to a demon and is adopted as that demon's grandson, oddly enough. We then follow his life as he tries to avoid being found out as a human in his demon school. Through several twists of fate, he ends up being known as the most powerful demon in the school and gains some pretty unlikely and unorthodox friends. I don't think that this series does anything new or particularly spectacular, but it is funny. One thing that I will mention is that it is directed towards what I imagine to be a younger audience. So some of the characters can be a little two-dimensional at times, but still, I think worthwhile in watching. I'm in episode 4, and I have full intention on continuing to completion.
Very nice. That premise, albeit a bit different, it reminds me of Rosario Vampire, which is personally one of my favorite manga and anime of all time.
It has a very Rosario Vampire sort of. Well, I'm not thinking. No, it doesn't have that same feel. It has. I'm trying to think of the name of the anime. It has another. It's another anime where there's a vampire at school. There's also an alien.
Ah, that's actually I Am.
Yes, that one. That anime has a very similar feel to this one. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they were the same studio.
And I did watch that when it was airing, and it did get a chuckle out of me. And its manga is actually very good. It's very entertaining in its own special way. But, well, with that overview, I will actually look into that. Thank you, Jordan. And let's get to our reviews. I'll start with the show that you dropped, and I'm still currently reviewing, that being Fire Force. Essentially, what happened in this episode is we're continuing it with the events of the previous episode where the White Clad are following up with their utter chaos and disruption of the town that the 7th District is residing over, which all culminates in a fight scene between a Horde Infernal, known as a demon, and Benimaru, which took a lot of strength on his end to take out this thing, which was originally one of the White Clad that ate one of the Infernal creating insects. And we also got some developments from Shinra and showing a bit of fear when he saw a vision of his legs becoming nothing but bone. Which that was kind of eerie. And one of the White Clad he kind of refers to as Arrow Girl, which her ability to manipulate her flames into arrows makes sense, saying that he is the Adola Burst, which is a force that will eliminate humanity or exterminate them, much like their commander, which is Shinra's brother. And he does his best to actually deflect the arrow that was shot at Benimaru when he tossed the demon into the sky with his pyrokinetics. And also, at the end of the episode, well, after the ending song, that is, the 8th and the 7th actually become friends after this event and whatnot. And that's essentially the episode. Very solid. I know I've kind of shortened it and I made it very concise and to the point. That's kind of what I have to do with this show. And there's no Vinland Saga review this week, folks. Simply because I had a few things that I needed to take care of, and that episode will fall through the wayside this week, but you'll get 2 of the price of 1 for the Vinland Saga reviews next week. Now, let us get to the reviews for the shows that we're both watching, that we still have. And those are 4 shows. Which one do you want to start with, Jordan?
Okay, so my cue is We Never Learn Bokumen. Episode 4, Sometimes the Genius Struggles with a Limited X.
The episode where Rizu changes her look.
Mm-hmm.
And Urika speaks English for a good portion of the episode. Poorly, might I add.
Oh, English.
A lot of English.
Well, I guess technically English, just poor English.
I mean, admittedly that is true. But, like we mentioned, Rizu, Fumino, and Urika are actually studying together at the beginning of the episode, and Fumino suggests that the next time Rizu goes to style her hair differently because of Sakijo, who changes her hairstyle into twin tails, and Rizu mentions, like, why does everyone change their hairstyle like this? So Rizu goes to a hair salon, and the boss, the head woman of the salon, just loses her shit and just pulls out all the stops and makes Rizu a beauty that far extends her limitations, because the boss was bored and just lost her shit when she saw Rizu just coming through the door. And poor Nariyuki in this episode, he had to deal with not only Rizu looking so beautiful that he didn't even realize it was her, and Urika doing her best at speaking English. Although one of my favorite parts of this episode is the tail end of it. Like, the last few minutes of the episode is the dog and his mother basically speaking in full English with no breaks whatsoever. Just really showing nothing but disrespect to Urika. He was like, Mom, I tried my best to tell the girl that she was speaking English rather poorly. It's like, damn, pup, you don't need to disrespect her like that. Jesus. Anything else you want to add for this episode, Jordan?
Tony, I told you I'm behind, fam. I haven't seen this episode.
Well, that's essentially what happened. Oh, and of course, the usual misunderstanding abounds, where Nariyuki, I don't know why I blanked on his name for a short while, was telling some English speakers that were trying to pick up Urika that she was his precious study buddy, and he says his precious steady instead. That, which admittedly,
slip of the tongue.
Yep, usual slip of the tongue, and the usual girl gets so embarrassed when she realizes what that means, and just runs full tilt out of there. Still pretty damn funny. What's next, Jordan?
Next up is Dr. Stone, episode 17, 100 Nights and 1,000 Skies, which deals with the story of Byakuya. Is that his name?
Yep, Byakuya.
Byakuya. And the initial survivors of the International Space Station, their lives and subsequent inevitable deaths, and essentially goes through the story of how they handed down the torch to to their offspring, so that they might live to one day see the resurrection of Senku.
Yep, and the rest of humanity.
Which honestly has to be the most badass thing ever. You must be a very intelligent man. You gotta be a very smart motherfucker for someone to put the entire future of humanity on your shoulders and be like, I have been sure that these children, regardless of the time that you wake up, will know you.
Yeah, this is a man.
To assist you in rebuilding the world. Also, can we touch on the fact that these people are super inbred?
Oh yeah, definitely so inbred.
If I count that there's only 4 of the children.
Oh yeah, they are super inbred.
So like, unless they live to make like each of them have like 5, 6 kids or something like that. I don't know. Also, isn't it kind of weird that I can't think of any of their names? Mercy. The singer, the diva, she looks exactly like the priestess and the gorilla.
Lillian. So in order. So in order, Lillian is the singer, Ruri is the priestess, and the gorilla is Kohaku.
So why does Kohaku look like Lillian if Lillian never had any children?
Well, there was another blonde, that being the other woman.
Yeah, but come on now, Tony.
I know.
Come on now.
I know. I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me. Lord help me. I don't know. Although one thing that is very interesting is that Byakuya and Senku aren't technically related by blood, but he is still Senku's father.
Right. I mean, it's definitely an interesting way to go about things, because I have no idea who Senku's parents are supposed to be.
Yeah, that is true. Oh, and then...
It doesn't matter. I mean, he doesn't seem attached to anyone, technically.
That is true, but...
So,
he did...
for all intents and purposes, he could just... his parents could have just been dead.
Very true. And, also, the one thing that, really got me was, even though his dad was gone, as you've noticed anything, Senku never really shed a tear throughout the...
He cried at the end.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He didn't cry until the end, where he realized, like, damn it, old man, you really put this on my shoulders, didn't you?
I mean, he did the best he could.
True. And then you get, Jin basically saying, oh yeah, Tsukasa's coming in, and he's going to wreck shop. So I'm looking forward to that, seeing what happens there. Well, what's next, Jordan? We only have 2 more shows left, so it's either Orsuki or My Hero.
Oh, Orsuki is that's up next on my queue. So, Orsuki episode 4, the results of my hard work. Again, names escape me immensely, but my boy Joro ended up coming out on top, kind of, sort of, not really. We'll get to that in a minute. But after staging a series of apologies, he reassembles his friend group and integrates Pansy effectively into that friend group. Honestly, this is an episode about, repairing the damage that has been done and transitioning very nicely into the next major story arc, which seems to be Joro being accused of being a three-timing playboy.
Yeah, a sleazebag, which, Lord Jesus, when I saw that reporter character come in, which her name was so long I can't remember it now, it's like, yep, you're about to start some shit, you little troublemaker.
Oh, honestly, I didn't put two and two together until the very last scene, but it was a Chekhov's gun situation, right?
Mm-hmm. It's like,
Chekhov's gun, for those who don't know, is a famous assertion that if a writer shows a gun on the wall, it must go off before the end of the book.
yep. And so, when you introduce a character who's a reporter that's asking these these interesting questions about, hey, do you know that there's this flower dance where a boy is nominated and, like, something to do a boy and three girls dealing with nominations and whatnot. And she asks Jorah point blank, who do you think is going to be one of those girls that will end up being one of the three? And I'm like, okay, I see you now. Oh, that's a clever little disguise. Which makes me wonder what's going to happen next. Because I just recently got into its manga, and I haven't looked into it that far yet. So I'm blind at this point until I reread it. Well, I continue reading it. But with that being said, that just leaves My Hero. That being episode 66.
So My Hero is on episode 66, Boy Meets, which deals with Midoriya trying to get into Night Eye's agency after putting his foot directly in his mouth the episode before with his failed attempt at humor.
Yep. But even though it was misdirected, it's like, why are you really killing All Might? His face clearly doesn't have that many wrinkles. It's like, are you trying to, like, throw this off? And just to prove Night Eye wrong, he didn't because Night Eye was pulling out all the stops to show Midoriya's resolve into actually taking up the mantle of All Might's successor for One for All. Just laying down like, hey, I don't accept you as the successor. Prove that to me. Take this stamp from my hand, and I will let you in. Only to find out that, hey, I've already accepted you. Nothing to worry about. But if you were to do anything else, I wouldn't have accepted you in the first place. Well, the reason why I'm laughing is Jordan just posted something in our Discord server that just basically says, when your party goes to sleep and the DM starts rolling dice. Very funny, Jordan. But anyway, back to the review for episode 66 of My Hero. The cool thing of what Midoriya did was, as he was bouncing through the wall across the room, he made sure to carefully not step on any of the All Night memorabilia spread around the office, which really impressed Sir Night Eye. And also at the tail end of this episode, we have the same thing that happened at the the end of season 3 where Deku and Mirio meet up with Eri and Chisaki, which Chisaki is going to be a very powerful villain in this season. It's just going to be great, folks. I'm looking forward to it every waking moment.
Every waking moment, Tony?
Every waking moment, because Overhaul is the shit.
He is. He really is. Although he did not need to do my boy like that.
True.
In the previous episode.
That is true. He just completely destroyed 2 members of the League of Villains, killing Big Sis Magne.
Technically only one, since my dude only lost his arm.
Yeah, Mr. Compress gets a bionicle arm, so he's fine.
Honestly, I'm surprised they don't know anyone that can just heal that. But, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Can't have too many convenient quirks.
Yeah, because most villains don't have the, wouldn't choose to have a quirk to heal other villains. Because that would make too much sense, Jordan.
I mean, yeah. Who would have thought about, I don't know, thinking about healing themselves?
Yeah, because,
Idiot.
yeah, because buying weapons from the black market and giving a robotic prosthetic to a guy whose quirk is to compress things with his hands. But hey, c'est la vie. So, since this is the week that we're doing this review is the week of Halloween, and the last time to actually talk about anything that's related to horror and anime and manga, I mentioned last week that we'd be talking about ghost stories as our topic for the soapbox discussion. Because there's actually a few anime, regardless if it's connected to horror or not, that really plays with the concept of ghost stories. Like there's this...
I thought you were talking about the anime ghost stories. I was like, is that a horror? Because I've only ever watched the English...
Which, that shit was funny.
Right now. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that shit was funny. Which, technically that counts. Technically it counts as, that's a horror comedy. Which, for all intents and purposes, we could easily talk about it here, because regardless of culture, ghost stories as a whole are just an interesting facet of storytelling. Like, you know how in most anime they have these school legends, like local ghost stories? There's one great anthology series that's either currently running or about to wrap up right now, called, now its name escapes me at the present moment, but I enjoy watching it. It's called, Yami Shibe, which is a, anthology series of Japanese ghost stories. And and they're very short, like maybe about 5 minutes long. And each ghost story is told from a different perspective. And the animation style is very simple. It's kind of like a motion comic in that sense. Like, very limited movement. Hell, even the lips don't move. But still, it works just fine. And there's also my personal favorite representation of ghost stories in anime is Dusk Maiden of Amnesia. Which... that is a series that's personally not only one of my favorite anime, but one of my favorite just horror stories. And it's one of my favorites because it represents the aspects of horror that I like. It's very gothic, it can be very serene, and very atmospheric. But it also has those lighthearted moments that typically horror doesn't deal with lighthearted moments. But it's those scenes that are the calm before the storm, where the ultimate scares come in. And for those of you who don't know, Duskmane of Amnesia is a show about, well, where a young boy falls in love with a ghost that died, well, of a ghost of a girl that died due to a religious order back in, I would like to say, the 40s. And it's her spirit that's connected to a local ghost story at their school where it's kind of similar to a ghost story that's found in most Japanese schools where, the ghost girl in the toilet sort of thing. But it's connected to a local curse in the area. And they try to solve they try to solve the mystery behind her death and whatnot. And, of course, your typical romantic comedy scenes will be in this particular anime. But what I love about this show is that it's very atmospheric for the most part. And some scenes in this show are strikingly beautiful. And it exemplifies what I like about ghost stories. Some ghost stories can be very culturally enhanced. It's like, ghost stories like that shape the makeup of a area. Personally, in my home state of Oregon, there are local ghost stories that are just very fascinating. Like the ghost story of the Bandage Man. A ghost that used to be a lumberjack in life, but was killed in an accident down a stretch road of Cannon Beach, Oregon. And when you pass down this stretch of road, if you smell something like rotting flesh, you'll run into the Bandage Man, who either gets in the back of your truck or is chasing after your vehicle. But he'll only disappear right when you get into Cannon Beach. So, and to formulate into a question before I ask this, Jordan, how do you feel about the way ghost stories are represented in anime, and have you heard of any ghost stories that interested you?
Well, the typical way that I encounter ghost stories in anime is often in the horror genre itself, and they're represented largely as urban legends or derivatives of existing sort of like long-standing folklore. There are no classics that pop out immediately into my mind, but yokai as like a general sort of categorical sort of a horror element, I see a lot. And I like some of them, not all of them. I don't really understand the Japanese concept of horror all too well. It seems very rooted in the mundane becoming abnormal.
And I think that's...
Or things taken to its sort of like extreme, sort of like the hag with... Sort of like hags from European mythology, but in a different direction. Guess if I had to pick something that I find to be the most horrific, it would probably be like the school, like the high school, middle school, urban legend, like rumor mill sort of deal that occasionally occurs in like slice of life or horror animes themed around school life, where it's just like the hallways that have a girl who committed suicide, or the skeleton, or the anatomical skeleton in anatomy lab that moves on its own.
Yeah, those school legends, like the Seven Wonders, as they're usually called.
Yeah, those are my favorite, especially when they're not real. When they are real, it's not as funny.
Oh yeah, that's definitely great. So, well, back to usual like ghost stories and urban legends. Have you come across ones from your state, that being the state of Texas, that interested you?
I'm not technically from Texas, so I don't have anything off the top of my head. I mean, this close to the border, the chupacabra is probably the closest thing you got.
Fair enough. And, well, Oregon, I've realized, is a very spooky, can be a very spooky state. And those with weak wills, like, I know a few people that are very weak-willed when I actually tell them about some of the spooky things I've learned about my home state. Like, Jordan, I hope you realize that there is a butte in my home state that is connected to witchcraft and sorcery. And if you go out there at night, you will run into little imp creatures. Or so the legend goes.
Man. And it's interesting, I suppose. Don't get me wrong, but I'm back. I'm back in Virginia. We have a long history of killing witches. I really don't know how else to say that. There was a road back home called Witch Duck Road.
True.
Very unsavory name for a road.
Yeah, true. Well, there's actually speaking of weird road names, there's one from the town of Silverton in my state. It's called Sledgehammer. Yeah, some idiot decided they're gonna name a stretch of road Sledgehammer.
I love it.
But with that being said, that concludes this episode here. So if there's anything else you want to mention, Jordan, feel free to, but it's the end of the episode regardless. Hopefully, folks, you join us next week where we go into November. And I hope you guys have a fun and safe Halloween. I know I'll be working on Halloween, which is perfectly fine by me. Alright, later folks.